that actually was footage taken in 2005, which is the very beginning of Bring Me Hope.
And that was your family.
Yeah.
Just your family.
And that was us, like, then, like, let's tell our friends. And we showed that, and we couldn't get anyone to come. We're like, we experienced the most incredible thing. And that first summer, we were trying to tell everyone we could to come with us. And it ended up being just our family in the middle of, in China. Like, we didn't know where we were going, never been there before, had one person that we knew that met us and took us into China and ended up doing that first
so we've
camp.
got lots of questions about that because, first of all, what a beautiful setting.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when we first hear your story, I'm sure there are images that conjure up in people's imaginations of desperate, destitute. That didn't look desperate and destitute.
Yeah. Well, I thought if we're going to bring the kids out of the orphanage, why not bring them somewhere beautiful?
So the place where they came from was desperate and destitute.
Yeah. There's a situation, like, the situation's
we'll
all different. Yeah.
Let's get to that in a little bit. So make no mistake, these kids come from horrible situations.
Right.
But God has led you to bring them to a place of fun and beauty.
And you know what's interesting is that we do all those things, and we thought, like, we need to take them to McDonald's and boat rides and all this. And then we asked them at the end of the day, what is your favorite thing? You know, score them all, you know, because we want to see what most connected with them. And they said it wasn't all that. It was when we were in our apartment, just sitting around, kind of like a family, talking, playing card games, just being together. And they said that was our favorite thing.
Wow, it was the family loved.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool is it doesn't have to be, you don't have to do anything special, you don't have to be anyone amazing, or all they simply want is life to life. Just spending time with them in a very simple way, and that to them, at the end of that first camp that we did, one of the kids looked at us and said, "This is the best day I've ever had in my entire life."
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was just your family and 28 children, right? 28 orphans.
Yep.
We, you know, the guy playing the guitar.
Yeah, that's my dad.
That's your daddy.
Yep, it was a family thing, you know.
And those being wrapped up in toilet paper.
Yeah, it was my brother. Yep.
And your sister there too, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, we're all took the different parts.
And so tell us a few of the details. You know, there was the language barrier. How did you take care of that? And as well, who shot that gorgeous video?
Yeah, we did.
We're very curious about that.
I ended up like finding a TV station that had just a super nice camera and hired them for $50 for the entire day.
$50 for that video?
And they gave us that footage. And
wow. God was just going before you.
Yeah.
And the language barrier.
The language barrier is a really neat story. God brought us to China with a heart for orphans. And that was like our heartbeat. These kids that have been just abandoned and left. And so, of course, not being able to speak any Chinese. When I first went to China, I didn't know one word. I think I learned my first word once I got there. But God brought translators, interpreters into our lives because we needed to like connect with these kids. And there is a lot of it that we don't, just a hug doesn't need any words. But we did need translators for other things, and they were curious. Why did you come all the way over here? Like, why are you here?
The translators.
The translators, yeah. And we were able to share with them that we're Christians, and we believe that God created every person with value. No one's worthless and to be abandoned. And they started becoming Christians. They were asking questions, and it led to just like a whole nother area of just work and being a light. So anyways, that's the translation part.
So how long are the camps?
The camps for volunteers go 1 or 2 weeks.
Okay.
And it goes from mid-July to mid-August.
But I mean, for the child, it's
and then the child
is it
comes
a week
for 5
long?
days.
5 days.
So Monday to Friday.
Wow.
And you do that throughout the summer, so you have groups coming and going.
Coming and going, yeah.
And so how many children at a time are usually with you?
We've had up to like 80 kids, which is crazy. Like, that's when like I'm just running around like kids everywhere, you know, and then we've had like down to like 10, which, you know, I think like 20 to 30 is like a good manageable size.
Now are the orphanage directors there as well? Are some of the orphanage staff coming with the children?
That's one of the things that we realize is we want them to be able to leave the memories and everything back at the orphanage. So We'll have staff from the orphanage come if they're worried or if they haven't ever been to camp for a day. But then it's how we set up camp that they can't stay, the staff
Okay,
from
so
the
just
orphanage.
for a day, they bring them perhaps, and then they can go and.
I want to know about the kids. Why are they orphans? What makes them orphans there in China?
And I'm glad you asked, because I feel like, this piece is about China, but there's kids everywhere here in Canada and America and Africa, and there's parents that get themselves in unfortunate circumstances and that shouldn't be parents all over the world, and then unfortunately the kids suffer. And I've worked in orphanages all over the world, and God's really put China in our lives, but it's not just China. But in China, we have run into just stories that have broken my heart, absolutely, and I feel like have led to, this is something I think I want to do for the rest of my life.
You've even put a book together here. Perhaps you could tell us a story or two from it. Love
Tell
Delivery.
us about your children that God has connected you with, because it's important that we understand and get into the heartbeat of these precious kids.
One of the stories that we share in there is of a little boy that came to camp and was repeating a Chinese phrase that whole week. And his volunteer heard it and wondered what it was, but it was in a local dialect, so they couldn't get the translation on it. And he kept repeating it over and over and over and over again. And one of the other kids from that same town was able to translate it from his local dialect to Mandarin. And then we found out what he was saying. And what had been going through his mind over and over and over again was the last words that his mom said to him. And those words were, "Wait here and I'll come back for you." And I just imagine this little guy, not knowing what's going on, sat down by his mom, and maybe she looked at him in the eyes and maybe she looked away and just said, "Wait here and I'll come back for you." And then him waiting and waiting and waiting, and then the mom never coming, and then the orphanage and the police coming and taking him away. And one of the kids told us it was, when they went to the orphanage, it felt like I was going to jail. And someone recently shared with me that those traumatic situations that happen in anyone's life, you keep replaying over and over in your mind, just like one snippet. Maybe something tragic happened and it was a car accident, and you keep replaying that 5 minutes in your mind over and over and over and over again. And for him, that was the tragedy that kept going over and over and over in his mind. And I feel like that is why these kids need people to come to them and break that and say, that happened and that was tragic, but you're not worthless and you're not, unloved. Like, I came all the way to say, no, that's not true. One of the little girls that was at camp, my dad had to take her back to the orphanage halfway through, and someone was looking at adopting her and looked at her and then looked at the orphanage director and said, "Do you have any prettier ones?" And my dad's sitting there seeing the whole thing happen, and she breaks down sobbing, this little girl, over and over and over in her mind, she's going to be playing that. "Do you have any prettier ones? Do you have any prettier ones?" And how amazing it is when someone comes and just destroys that. And that's what I feel like camp is about.
Destroys it with something so
So
amazing. They
beautiful.
love of God.
Yeah.
I'm thinking here, I told the viewers that there was a little girl by the name of Yaya. We need to hear her story because
Yes.
God used her to put
yes.
you on this course.
Yeah, because my first trip to China, I was like, well, if we're going to start an orphanage, I got to go to China and meet people, and I got to learn the language somewhat. And so I arrived to Beijing with my sister, clueless what was ahead of me. And I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but I did that summer. It was a little girl that's probably about 4, and her name was Yaya. And she was scared to death of me. Every time I come into the room, she'd run to the other side. And for me, it was like this challenge, like, I'm gonna win. This is not gonna happen. I want to win your affection. And so throughout that week, the second week, I'd bring candy to kind of bribe her And so I give her candy, and she'd take it and run the other way, and take it and run the other way. But then shortly, she let me hold her, and I remember just feeling that sense of victory. And I set her down, and she walked to the window. And as I was walking away, she put her face against the glass and just watched me just intently leave. And that summer went by, and I was broken by the other kids, but then I knew to say goodbye to her was going to be the hardest. And when I set her down, I will never forget, she walked to the window and just put her face against the glass. And I walked away the most broken person in the world, just thinking, how many other little girls are there, like all over the world, that are watching and waiting, and no one comes down that road, you know? So she absolutely did devastate me and led me just even more, like coming back in our family. Let's do this. Let's go to China and find these girls.